Welcome to your 10 minutes, which is an impossible task on the topic of meditation. It's really mainly meditation and health, but I'm going to define meditation and tell you what meditation is to begin with anyway. For those who don't know me, I'm Farad Ahmad. I am a retired GP, and currently I am a trainee in an organization called Breathworks that specializes in use of mindfulness meditation in treatment of, in helping people with chronic illness and pain. Mindfulness has become a buzzword recently, and it's sort of slowly getting more popular and getting into the press. How many of you have heard of mindfulness? Well, there we go. That's an example of what mindfulness is. It's a new buzzword. So hopefully we can define it. I'm really pleased to say that myself and my colleague are going to start running an 8-week course for people with chronic pain in this area for the first time. And it's going to start at the end of January. So if anybody's interested or knows people who are have illness and pain, please talk to me afterwards. I have some leaflets that I can share out. Just in a way of demonstration, here I am standing in front of you, and I'm aware that my heart's beating a little bit fast. There's a shake in my leg because I'm nervous. There's a bit of an ache in my body. There's some colors, there's some really friendly and interested faces. There's one face here that I've known from childhood. And I'm beginning to be aware of my environment and myself. And actually, I'm beginning to meditate. And soon my eyes might close. And I'm going into my inner world. That's the beginnings of meditation. If there's one message that I want to put across to you today, and I'm going to stick my neck out on this, is that meditation is at the core of lasting well-being. And I'm emphasizing that word, lasting. We all go through phases of well-being, up and down. But what meditation does, it stabilizes that, and it leads to increasing well-being. It's a journey towards well-being, and it is indeed a journey. We don't know how well we can be. We can be well, we think we are well, but there are actually grades of wellness. You can be more well than you are right now. And that's what meditation does. Meditation is good for us because it takes us along that journey into the places of well-being which may actually we may not be aware of. But please note that I'm using the word well-being. I'm not using the word health. Health and well-being are two separate things, and they're not dependent on each other. I can be terribly physically unhealthy, but I can be well, and I think some people here know. I can be in my hospital bed and have a beautiful experience of well-being. The touch of the sheet on the face, the beautiful view outside, and be actually experience well-being. So it doesn't depend on physical condition. This is great news because physical deterioration is a fact of life. And we deteriorate, our bodies deteriorate, but well-being can be constant, and that's what meditation does to you. So, what this well-being that I'm talking about is a subjective experience. And this is what brings us to mindfulness and meditation. And that's where meditation comes in. What is meditation? Meditation is a set of techniques that explores our subjective experiences. It's a technology. It's a technology for inner exploration. And as science is a technology for outer exploration, meditation is a technology for inner exploration. We are scientists of the inner world. You have to do it in order to find out what effect it has on you. Meditation practices can be grouped into, broadly speaking, to seven groups. And I've broken with tradition and I have a prop. First person to have a prop. I couldn't fit this line on one page, so this is one continuous spectrum, and it goes from relaxation to enlightenment. Don't ask me what enlightenment is, I haven't got a clue. But there are a set of group of meditation practices that are to do with relaxation. There are a set of practices that are to do with mindfulness, and in that there are things like body, being mindful of body, breath, thoughts, etc. Then from there we move to meditation practices that are to do with developing compassion and being with and forming connection with others. Then there are meditation practices that are attention training, and to see how long you can keep attention on something. Then there are practices for mental focus, and then there are practices for inquiry, and then that inquiry is into nature of being, into nature of the world. I mean, this is getting a bit esoteric, and I'm not going to talk about that. Today, I'm going to talk about mindfulness, and that's what the subject of the talk is. So, what is mindfulness? Let's define that. This is the definition of mindfulness given by a gentleman called Jon Kabat-Zinn, who brought mindfulness and made it a secular practice in the Western world. The origin of mindfulness, of course, is in Buddhism, is one of the eightfold paths of the Buddha, but it's now been made secular, and all the religious bits have been taken out of it, and it's become a technique. Mindfulness is a particular way of paying attention on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. Now, how many of us can do this? I think that's a very big project. It means that we have to intend it. It has to be to do with our environment, with our bodies and thoughts and minds as it is now, and it's without actually judging it. How many times do we judge our pain? I have a pain, I don't want it. That's judgment. Pain is a bad thing. That's judgment. That's difficult. The other definition is by the head of my organization, Breathworks, which says, live in the moment, notice what is happening, make choices how to respond to your experiences rather than being driven by your habitual habits. That's a good definition of mindfulness as well. So you may say, well, what's the relationship of this to health? Well, let me use an example to hopefully demonstrate it. I'm going to take chronic back pain. It's a very common condition. I've had it. I'm sure a lot of people have had it. So what happens to the mind of somebody that develops chronic back pain? What do you think happens? Well, I have a list here, which I'm going to go through. The first thing that happens naturally is that we don't want it. Who wants pain? That's the beginnings of what is called resistance, which leads to the following. I go through the list. You harden against the unpleasant sensation. You deny it. You carry on working, doing gardening, all those things that may actually exacerbate it. You become restless. You sort of lose the ability to judge when to stop, so you carry on. You develop addictions. People use alcohol, prescribed drugs, tobacco, food, to sort of cut off that experience, that unpleasant experience. You become anxious, irritable, brittle and edgy, over-controlling of others. You go in your head rather than your body, and I think most of us have experienced that. These are what blocks our experiences of that very initial insult, which was the pain. If you stay in that for a while, the next sequence of things happen. The feelings of exhaustion, being overwhelmed, lack of interest, apathy sets in. we start to drown in our pain, in our suffering. This leads to inactivity, and we take to our beds, muscle weakness develops, loss of function develops, sticks come out, and you go into the chronic illness situation. We become emotionally dull, passive, and depression may well ensue after all that. These are all called drowning. Drowning and blocking comes from our resistances to our experiences. I'm going to summarize you and give you some jargons. Jargon words. Jargons are useful. The very thing that started it is called primary suffering. It is the pain. That's primary suffering. We can't do anything about it. We don't want it, we reject it, and that leads to secondary suffering. We can do something about secondary suffering. Secondary suffering is caused, all the list, everything I've just said to you, by blocking and drowning. Mindfulness cuts this across here. Stops the primary suffering becoming a secondary suffering. Right. The next thing is that how does mindfulness cut that? I think that's really important. I'm just going to spend 1 minute. I'm over time, but I'm just going to spend 1 minute to show you how mindfulness cuts in between primary and secondary suffering. Oh, there. Yeah. And this is something that's called 5-step model of mindfulness process. I'm going to go through it very fast, and it's a very big subject, but I'm going to go through it very fast so that you have an inkling of how mindfulness cuts the resistances. We first have to become aware of what we're actually feeling. What are we aware of? We're aware of our bodies, of our feelings, of our thoughts. Mindfulness increases our awareness. From awareness, we're encouraged to actually move towards the unpleasant feelings. That's counterintuitive, I know, but actually if you move towards it, you're going to block the resistances and you're going to go through the resistances and blockages. And you actually realize that the pain is not what you think it is. The suffering is not what you think it is. It's changing all the time. It's not constant. Back pain changes. Sensations change. It's never constant. That will encourage you to say, oh, wow, the thing that I was so scared about isn't that bad after all. Then you move into the positive experiences. Okay, I'm lying in my bed, but there are positive things that are happening in my life. The birds are singing. There are the flowers. There's something outside the window. I'll never forget the example of a man dying in a hospice of I don't know, some sort of terrible cancer. And he asked the nurses to move the bird feeding table in front of the window so that he could have a positive experience. In that terrible condition of pain and suffering, he found the positive. And I think he was being mindful at that time. And then we go into the bigger container. And the bigger container is expansion of awareness, not just our suffering, but also the positive things. Also other people in our lives, also the good things in our life. And that is the bigger container. How big is the container? You tell me. The container is big. It's actually infinite, but the container is big. And then from that huge container, you move into choice. Choice is, if in our container there is only poor me and suffering, then you only got one thing to choose. But if in my container I have poor me and suffering, and what a beautiful day is it outside, that's two choices. Then we have a choice which one to choose. If the container has got 10 choices, then you can make those choices. And that will enable us to choose. Mindfulness, and I think you have to try it before you know how that works, enables us to have choice. So I think choice is about well-being, because with choice we can choose well-being, and that's why meditation can be at the core of health and well-being. Thank you very much.